Hello, welcome to the Slackware on vlog. I've got my friend Warwick here today because he's interested in the bootloader process for the Raspberry Pi. And I am currently in the process of working on the Raspberry Pi 5 support. And after some conversations on the Linux Questions Forum and with Brent as well, and thinking through, I've realized that the easiest thing to do is completely dispense with U-boot and just boot directly from the Raspberry Pi's native bootloader. The only real reason why we used U-boot previously was because we'd already used it on the Rock Pro 64, and so all the workflows in terms of configuration and just knowing how it works were known quantities. However, the problem is that well, there's one thing is that the U-boot developers aren't the Raspberry Pi developers, so it can be quite some time before U-boot supports a new version of the Raspberry Pi and supports it well. So that means that in terms of Slackware, we're stuck waiting for that to happen. Plus, there are other things like stability. So whilst U-boot is actually really stable, there are issues that creep up from time to time, like, for example, I upgraded to one of the latest versions of U-boot on the Raspberry Pi 4, and everything was great until the VC4 frame buffer module loaded, and then it just errored out, and the frame buffer just disappeared. So I had no visual on the HDMI. So I downgraded it again, and it fixed it, and then I upgraded it to a later release a month later, and it worked fine. But apparently it doesn't work fine on the Raspberry Pi 400, whereas the old version we used to use for several months works fine. So there is these kinds of issues that we just don't need to deal with, because it's just easier to use the Raspberry Pi bootloader, especially when it's all of the documentation online is around configuring NAT in terms of the device tree blobs, the overlays, and everything else. Plus, the Raspberry Pi bootloader is really well documented. In fact, I have the documentation open in my browser here somewhere. It's really well documented. So what I've just been working on, I've just done a load of hacking on the build system for the SD card installers. Here's my little SD. Oh, that blurs out. Whatever. Anyway, here's an SD card. So I've been working on the build system that builds the SD card images. Well, they're not just really for SD cards. They're the Slackware installer images that usually you dump onto an SD card, but you can also dump onto USB stick and boot off that. It doesn't matter. Or even a hard drive. But anyway, they're disk images. So I've just been hacking on the disk image build system to remove U-boot. So we're not going to even build it anymore for the BCM, any of the Broadcom stuff, because we'll use the native bootloader. Also, it means that we don't need a /boot partition for the Raspberry Pi at all, because we had one. It was an ext4 formatted partition of our system. The only reason we used it is because U-boot, I don't think, well, U-boot might support, well, U-boot probably does support FAT, actually, it must do, but we used ext4 because the kernel, Slackware kernel package creates symlinks for the kernel system.map and what's the other thing, the initRD. So it's easier just to have an ext4 partition and put all the U-boot stuff like the xlinux config on it, and U-boot just loads everything from loads the kernel, RAM disk and whatnot from there. But I realized we don't need one of those if we use the Raspberry Pi native bootloader, although that does actually complicate something else, as I realized as I was taking my daughter to shopping, that actually I need to change the operating system into a RAM disk manager to now move to also duplicate the initRD on the FAT partition of the Raspberry Pi native bootloader. Didn't expect that, but at least I remembered. This is one of the things what we're talking about when you use AI to build your code. You don't know what it does. Like, I know everything because I wrote it all. I'll copy Brent's stuff. Oh yeah.
You cannot trump true experience.
No. What did I even have this for in my hand? What am I doing here? So this session, anyway, really, Warwick was just calling me up and seeing what I'm doing with the bootloader. So that's what we're going to do. And I've forgotten why I'd put this. Oh yeah, basically. So I've just changed the, where did it go? Where's the, oh, there it is. So I've just changed these scripts. And of course, the thing about this is that this build system also builds the installer images for the RK3399, which is a Rock Pro 64 and a Pinebook Pro. And because I've changed the actual, like the actual tool itself to accommodate a few things, I don't know if the Rock Pro 64 image still works. So I now have to, as part of the, where is it? I've got like 2 pages of notes, of really scribbled notes of things on my whiteboard that I need to do to test things, and that is one of the things that I need to do. So I've just had an issue with the Raspberry Pi because I've got it to boot the kernel. Where is it? Where's the kernel? Oh, here. Yeah, so I've got it to boot. I've got it now to boot the Slackware installer, but it had messed up it had mangled, well, it kind of like conflated the serial cable, the serial Getty with the the local virtual console because of the terminal, the Linux command line settings. And it's because I realized that the Raspberry Pi native bootloader doesn't like having empty lines in the kernel command line config file. That was it. I spent about half an hour figuring that out. Right. So what I want to do is, this is here. So SDB3. So what I need to do now is I've just rebuilt all of the installer disk images, which are, where did I do that? Oh, there. Yeah, so I've just rebuilt those. What I need to do now is test on the Rock Pro 64. Although, yeah, because I don't have that. I'm not sure my serial connection still works on that, actually. A lot of, no one has any idea. I mean, unless you actually develop stuff, you don't know, oops, what it's like to actually be doing this stuff. It doesn't just appear fully formed. Yeah, so that doesn't.
And a lot of it isn't in the documentation. It comes from experience.
Yeah.
So no amount of AI could ever get that learning.
USB 0. Right. Okay. Hold on. Develop ARM Slack console SP0 Rock Pro. Boom. Right. So that's the serial console setup. I just need to. Do I need to DD? So talking to you though, I've realised I actually need to stop talking for a moment. ZCat. Right. There we go. So I want the Rock Pro. I want that version of the Slackware installer package. Is that right? SDB. Yeah. But shouldn't take too long because it's only a 2-3 gig image. Oh, actually,
I don't think you'll ever get rid of the bootloader completely, but it is absolutely the right thing to get rid of it on the Raspberry Pi.
Well, U-boot.
Yeah, you might need it for the other platforms, but it's absolutely right to get rid of it for the Raspberry Pi. If it's not required, don't have it.
Yeah, it's not required, no.
Through Unix philosophy.
Yeah, it just complicates things. And yeah. I mean, so with once I've removed it, I didn't anticipate it would be as much. Well, actually, it's not that much work. It's just that I have to touch quite a few different things because they've been set up for U-boot like 5 years ago. I need to remember where they are.
I think one of the things that surprised me is when I was looking at other architectures and the boot processes is how there's certain states that are optimal for certain tasks or workloads. But with the Raspberry Pi, it just seems to get into that working state, and that although it's got 44 states along the way to getting booted, all of them just tend towards that one state of being booted and not having multiple states with different like modes of operation, so to speak.
What are you talking about? The Raspberry Pi one in particular?
Yeah, I mean, like, so it's like on x86, you bring it up in 16-bit mode, and you have to kind of like sort the memory out to get the memory to work before you can actually go to the next level and things like that. You have to literally bootstrap some of the structures to make it work. Put it in a certain mode.
I don't know much about the. Hold on a sec. Where's the power cable? I haven't had the Rock Pro 64. Well, actually, where's the problem is my new kitten. It came in. I took it in here to keep so it could be kept company while it's living in the house until it's allowed to go out. And it walked all over everything. It walked on the Raspberry Pi. It walked here. Now I can't find the. Where's the power cable from for the Rock Pro 64?
I'll give you a little warning, Stuart.
Is that it?
My beloved Hugo ruined my router once by urinating on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was sitting here, so I'm not going to bring him in here anymore. I certainly wouldn't leave him
Yeah.
in here unattended. Right, I think that's the rest. That must be.
No, they used to like the routers because they were warm, but we got a bit old and incontinent.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they like this should. What is this? This should be the Rock Pro 64. Yeah, or not? And it should bring up a frame buffer. Right. Yeah, there we go. Right. So there's the Rock Pro 64 trying to boot. It's kind of blurry. Oh, why it doesn't like the. Why is it all blurry? Well, anyway, whatever. So the okay.
Oh, he likes it. Happy days.
Should do, yeah, yeah. I haven't changed. I mean, it's really a case of just, I've only changed the Raspberry Pi plugin for this tool that builds the installer disk images, but I had to add some extra code into the parent thing, the parent tool, the part of the tool, because it assumed that there would be a /boot partition on every image it made because there was one, but now there isn't. So I just need to check it.
To be honest, you don't actually. Most systems don't really need a /boot. It's only if the bootloader can't access a volume greater than the size that it supports, if I remember, isn't it?
Well, also, yes, correct. But also, which I don't think is an issue these days anyway at all. But the other reason was
LVM, probably.
yeah, things like that. Oh, not if and what's the other thing? If they're encrypted or something, you need to be able to still load the initRD and kernel from something. Right. So we should
There are use cases, but for a simple system, it's no longer required.
no, and notice it's not no. How do I tell it what? How do I tell it what the How do I find what the name of the partition, the file systems are? Without a spluck, I can't remember now. Okay, that should be it. Should be just -f. Cool. Yeah, right. Perfect. So yes, this is great. Of course, yeah. So SLK boot, everything still should be in good order. Now, flash C block 1 P1/Q. Yeah. Okay, that looks good.
So to play devil's advocate, though, admitting that my bootloader efforts may be completely non-required, are there any use cases that you can think of for a Raspberry Pi where you would want to use a bootloader, maybe to set parameters of sorts? Is there valid use cases, or is there simply none given what's provided?
Well, the bootloaders, as they are, you can do everything you need to do to boot Linux.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that I've ever needed that isn't already provided. Everything done. Can tick that off the list by the existing bootloaders. Right, that's done. That's done, and that's done as well. Oh, and comment build. Wait a second. There's another thing. Yeah, there's nothing else. So I mean, I don't really know the rationale for people who build bootloader, why they would go and build another bootloader when there already are one, unless it's like you said, people just want a challenge or they don't like
Well,
the way
I'm not fully familiar with what the capabilities are. I just naively thought, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let's have a go. Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Whimsical reasons, if only just whimsical reasons. But I mean, you're absolutely right. If you don't need it, don't have it. I'll still finish it just as a project, just because I can. But I don't expect it to ever be any of use to anyone. Yeah.
No.
It is my very own pink elephant.
Oh, I've already done this, right? So that already works. Cool, done. Right, so good. So I've tested the Rock Pro 64 stuff. That still works. So then I've got the latest version of the Slackware installer now booted, which I think is here. Yeah. Yeah. So that's my Raspberry Pi 4. That should be, yeah, okay, cool. Right, so that's done. So, okay, so the good news is the installer has booted, and we've got the, well, you can't see there, but you've got the console HDMI. I don't know why it doesn't automatically focus properly. I don't know why.
I'll tell you what I've got that I've never
Who's
used,
those people?
Stuart, if you want next time. I've got a HDMI recorder that may be useful for this.
Oh, right. I didn't know. The way I usually do recordings for the podcast is I just use screen record or use the phone or the camera to point
I
out.
think we could capture the full feed if you wanted to.
No, that's interesting. I probably don't need it, but I'll bear it in mind.
Well, I got it thinking I'd need it, and I've never used it, to be honest. But you do a lot more with this stuff than I do. So.
Oh, well, if you don't want it, I'll take it. So I'll definitely be able to use it. That's
Collecting
for
gift
sure.
from me. Have it.
What does it output as?
Uh,
MP4 or something like
It's 4K 30 FPS.
Oh, perfect. Oh, yeah. I'll take it off your hands for sure. Sounds good. I'll pick it up.
Yeah, no worries.
Right. So, okay. So the installer has booted. So that's like done. What do I need to do now? I've got all my notes all over the place. So that can wait till later. That's later. That's later. Oh, actually, I've done quite a bit already, actually. Fat cleanup, post install, rename image. Right. Okay, so what I might do is, yeah. So, yeah, what I've done. Yeah. Right. So what we've got now for the Raspberry Pi, we're going to have a single. The Slackware installer image has a single VFAT partition on it that contains a Raspberry Pi native bootloader stuff, and that's it. Well, okay, that's what's called the bare installer. It just has that now, but the actual installer that's documented has all of the Slackware package set on it, which I need to touch those build scripts as well, but that's later because those is like a completely separate workflow. So at the moment, it just has that. So I'm just going to check mount /dev/ paste that in /q. Okay, so this is the contents of the VFAT partition. So we've got the kernel. This is what I've had to add in as well because this wasn't previously here. We didn't have a kernel on the VFAT partition nor an initrd. We did get one once you'd install because the Slackware kernel package will actually populate the kernel and the OS, the operating system initial RAM disk there. If this was present, if this VFAT partition was mounted, but out of the box you didn't get anything. So I've had to, now we've only got a single partition. I've had to add that in as part of the build system for the installer. So we've got the Slackware mainline kernel here. We're using the mainline kernel, not the Raspberry Pi kernel fork, although I will test it with the Raspberry Pi kernel fork later. So you've got a config file, which is for the config.txt. That's the bootloader config for the Raspberry Pi's native kernel config. So you've got all the standard settings in here. And then we're using an include directive to include the rest of the Slackware stuff, Slackware specific stuff, which is just here. So we set the kernel here, so it's because it's not the default name. The default name doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want to use that. So this is this SLK because then we know it's stuff to do with Slackware rather than the Raspberry Pi stuff that they distribute. And then so we set the kernel, we set the initial RAM disk with the follow kernel that means load it into an address space after where the initial RAM disk got loaded. And then we have to set this value here. So the bootloader, I don't know why you need to set it to tell it that you're booting an upstream kernel. I don't know what's different in the Raspberry Pi kernel fork than is in the main line, but there you go. It's just another thing that's different. Anyway, that's what you set. So that gets set there, and then we've got these. What's going to happen is the post install script in the Slackware installer is going to switch this file name over here because this is the name of the installer initrd. It'll switch it with the name of the operating system initial RAM disk. I haven't written that code yet. And then there's this here. What is it? There's another one I added as well. SLKOS. So then, yeah. So also the post installer, which I still haven't written yet. I'm going to do it today probably. This will then I thought the easiest way of doing it is just to have different files, because you can include the files as part of as a directive. So I may as well just like move the file into place. Just easier than using sed or anything like that. So just move this file slkos to command line.txt. And I think that would do. Yeah. And then, yeah, cool. With me so far?
Yeah, I am now. I found unmute.
Right. So what I'm going to do then is normally I'd install using HDMI, but I will actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install using SSH. But normally the installation guide says to install over, what does it say to it? Just documents installing over HDMI, because most people are going to have an HDMI monitor and keyboard, USB keyboard, rather than SSHing into it or serial, because that obviously SSH and serial adds a layer of friction for most users, whereas monitor and keyboard doesn't. So it's documented like that. What am I doing now? Oh yeah, so if I SSH to, oh no, SSH root at, no, is it that one? It's going to great. Okay, so SSH into the Slackware installer. And then fdisk-l. We've already got our partitions on set up on our SSD drive, which is connected to a USB to starter converter. So we run setup. So I don't need to make any partitions, is what I'm saying. So we run setup. I'm wondering what else is going to break, because there's a few things that are going to break for sure. So right, so AC source installer. But I've done pretty well though, because I've got it booting. So now it's a case of just writing some more code and modifying some existing stuff. Installer, where's it live? That's where it lives. Pause, where is that called? Right, so there's a file. What we do is we create the flag we can touch in the Slackware ARM installer to just exit actually. Touch. Oops, touched. My God, touch. Right, setup. And that will pause the installer before it runs any of the install script, post install script. Or at least it's the ARM versions of it, ARM post install scripts. That said, though, I think that there might be something else as well. I think there's going to be some. I think the installer is going to complain because. Oh, it would be set partitions. Let me just check. Set console. What's that do? Boot. Scan. Right. Yeah. So some of these scripts are going to check whether they're. What? Let's SSH into it here. I think that some of the scripts are going to check whether there's any. They're going to do sanity checks because the Raspberry Pi should have an SLK boot partition, but we don't need it anymore. So I need to see whether that's really a thing. Okay. Boot. I just want to make sure it doesn't complain. Basically, scan the SMMC subsystem for a label called SLK. So Warwick, this is all this code that I wrote. It's absolutely nuts. Like all of this code for just like configuring stuff and
it's all necessary, but you see a lot of it's all comments to tell people what it does. So you took the comments. Yeah. It's probably not that much code, but it's code without context isn't helpful, is it?
Oh, there's loads of code. This is just one script, but it's also very well commented. So I knew, so I could come back in the future and wonder and not have to wonder why I'd done something in a certain way.
Just notice you've got an attribution with you still living in Spain in there.
Oh yeah, where at the top? Oh,
yeah. Done it's Spain, is it?
Yeah. Hang on. Ensure that the device has no partitions after the one or house/boot. What? If the last partition on the block device is the same as the one we're supplied with, it indicates that we potentially have. But I tell you what, it just reminds me like 4 or 5 years ago, porting this was like keeping all this stuff in your head of how this works and writing the code for it and designing it and testing it was really quite a thing, actually. Sanity check boot file. I might just run it actually and see if it, okay, that's for the resize. I don't care about that. Oh, that's fine. I don't care about that at all. That's just, okay. We don't use that code anymore. Sometimes I wrote some other stuff to like resize partitions if the user wanted to fill up the remote, to expand the volume size. And then I realized that just was silly. So I decided to take it out. Right, search for, okay, you know what? I wonder, actually, I think that should be fine. I don't think there's anything it's going to complain about with that thing. Arm slack RPI, let's just see if there's anything. That's fine, don't care about that. Arm slack post install scripts. Right. And that is, I've got to do some work on the remove installer as well, I think. Yeah, I need to make that delete. Yeah, okay. I need to make that delete some stuff. But let's see. So I think, oh, what's that do? Oh yeah, I know what that does. Right, so I think we can just do, is that the serial console? Yeah, that's the serial. Where's the, there it is, right. Okay, so let's do add swap, let's just see what happens. Format, yes, it's fine. Format, next for, yeah, that should be fine. Okay, it's mounting the at the bottom here. Its mount gets done. Okay, that's looking good so far. Still got to fix this thing here because yeah, there's some tabbing problems, some formatting problems here. It's been like that for ages. I need to fix that. Right, so but though the FS tab is good because it only has the SLK root partition, which is the root partition, and then the hardware model bootware, which is the FAT partition with the Raspberry Pi bootloader stuff on it. So that looks good. Would like to turn, yes, because there's something wrong with that. I don't know what that is. Switch it off. Okay. Right, so we haven't, so the normal Slackware installer that's documented actually has all the packages. So it just says, hey, you've got all the packages. Do you want to install them from there? Yes. But here we don't. So Slackware, AR64 current, Slackware, where? Hopefully that works. Yeah. Right, we don't need any of this stuff. Okay. Yeah, that'll do. So what I'm doing now is I'm just installing I'm just doing an install, but a really minimal one, because I don't need any, I just need the system to boot. Well, I need it to first just install the packages, then it will pause, and then I can see what I need to do to modify the existing post-install scripts to not configure U-boot on this thing. And also then I need to write another post-installation script to modify the native bootloader config. Sure, it's all pretty simple stuff actually at this point. So, so what I need to do is have a look at the code. So fortunately, none of the post-install code will run because I've set up a flag to pause the installer. So that means what I can do in the installer, I can just copy new versions of the post-install scripts into it before it executes them. So AC source installer is it hardware? Yeah, there's a few different. Let's have a look. So the 00 put in. You don't need to do anything with that. Good. 001. What does that do? Configure. Okay, fine. What does this do? Okay, that's fine. Oh, this literally runs them all. Okay, that's fine. So how does it know which order to do it in? Oh, it just does a. Okay, it runs them from user share, doesn't it? I think user share. Yeah, user share. Okay, so fine. Okay, so that's fine. It runs those scripts. Okay, that's right. And then OS Synitar D Manager, that does its job. Fine, don't touch that. Remove installer. Right, that one is going to have to be, okay, so this is, yeah, so this one, I might have to rename this one. Oh, actually, well, actually, do I need to rename this? No, I don't. No, I don't. I could just add to it. Okay, cool. Right. So basically, what this post install script does, it offers, well, it used to anyway. It used to offer you this option to remove the Slackware installer, which is just the initrd image of the installer from the system, because the way because it would convert the slash boot partition into the operating system slash boot partition, but you still have the Slackware installer there, and it was in the menu. So you could reboot and still have the install. You could still boot the installer if you chose it from the menu, but the installer would break very quickly because as soon as you do a kernel upgrade. So it's kind of pretty pointless, apart from during the initial bootstrapping phase. But I've eventually defaulted this so that it doesn't ask you anymore and it just removes the installer. So though, why could it? Okay, so what we can do here, a Raspberry. Oh, I see what it's doing now. Okay, so ARM Slack.
Who called it ARM Slack? Was that you or somebody else?
Me.
Wow.
Slackware, armed Slack. But I couldn't call it Slackware because Patrick hadn't given me permission to do it at that point. I was just porting it. It was only later when I renamed it to Slackware ARM because he gave me the permission to do it.
Wow.
Which, to be honest, actually really surprises me. There's been quite a few people in the community that just turn up, port it to something and call it Slackware. I'm like, but you haven't, it's not your trademark. It's like,
even with open source, you need to respect these things.
I know, it's very straight. It's very odd to me that someone just comes up and names it something without even asking the person who made it. Like, can you just call it? Like, no, it's not very respectful.
Can you not just set it out of the boot script once installed?
For certain things, yeah, I'll just set it out, yeah. But this is actually removing the installer image. So like here, where is it? Where's the SSH to it? No, 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 no. Okay, where is it? Where did it go? Oh, here. So this is boot platform. So this is so the Slackware installer has now mounted this VFAT partition under basically /boot/platform/HWMBW. So inside the OS and the installer, it's mounted as /boot. No, so what I'm doing here is deleting this. This is the Slackware installer. So this is the Slackware installer image, or the initrd. This is the Slackware operating system initial RAM disk. So they're very similarly named, but one has a .image extension, which is the installer, and the other doesn't, which is the OS. And you can see the installer is slightly larger as well, by a few megs actually, because the installer's got quite a bit more stuff in it. Yeah, right. So what I need to, there we go, that's the file name. So what I need to delete is that. So, right, to remove the installer, well, actually, I don't even need to check it. I don't need to test it. I can just delete it. rm-f, there we go. You won't complain if it's not there. Right, rm-f. Cool, because I don't need anything else. What else is there to do? I don't think there's anything else to do from that point of view. Slackware. Remove installer from the cleanup script. Yeah, done. How's the install getting on? It's getting there. And then what's next? I need to actually write I think that's it actually. There's not much to do. No. So we've got the uboot configure script. Okay, so there is no, okay, so this script just checks, this configures uboot, but only if the uboot config exists, of course, which it shouldn't do. Well, yeah, better not do on the Raspberry Pi. So if I have a look at the Raspberry Pi, which is here, I think, TTY, yeah, what? Yeah, so /boot should not have an AXT Linux config on it anywhere, which it doesn't. Okay, so I don't need to touch the uboot configure script, so that's good. What's the RPI script do? The RPI's native bootloader will handle loading device tree blobs. Okay. So the thing is, Warwick, as well, though, I'm not actually removing the U-boot stuff from like all of the.
There's always got to be an edge case where someone's going to want it. You just know as soon as you take it out, someone will scream it.
Yeah. So this was just a hack to remove to stop U. Yeah, basically. So I used U-boot to boot the kernel, but the flattened device tree stuff was actually handled by the Raspberry Pi's native bootloader because it was easier, and U-boot seemed to have some weird issue with it. So we just hacked out or deleted the line that configured U-boot with the DTBs. So that's what that does, but that only does that if the file exists. Actually, no, it doesn't. It does it anyway, doesn't it? Oh, well, that's a bug because it shouldn't have. Oh, no, it's not a bug because it's matching on the Raspberry Pi. Okay. So I could probably, what I have to do. Okay, so if this, so I need to put a condition. So because I don't want to remove the code, so I'll just have to put a condition in to check whether it exists first before trying to set it. String. Okay, if the file exists, then delete the stuff. There we go, done. So that's that done. So I should put some notes in here actually, shouldn't I? Change log. Do you do any of this, Warwick?
I do like keep notes of what I've changed. It's always worth noting the deltas, but I can't say I'm perfect at it. I think if I did something for a public project, I'd probably be a bit more keen about it. I do change logs for work, but not for my own personal stuff.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, yeah, this is only because it's public and it's useful for me to keep note of it.
I think it's true to say most people know all the best practices, but when it's your own stuff, you're lazy as hell. Most people are.
Yeah, I've just got used to it. I mean, there's certain things that I don't do because it's just a waste of time. Like, I just don't do it. So that goes there, slash, exactly.
I just had a thought, just because you don't have a boot volume doesn't mean you don't need a boot directory.
There's a boot directory, the kernel makes it.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, you used to be able to boot. A lot of people booted off of VM Linux in the root, didn't they?
Some did. Oh, well, in Linux? I'm not sure. Did people in Linux? They might have done. I mean, you can put it anywhere, right? I mean,
really? Well, it can go anywhere.
This is what we were talking about yesterday, like where instead of using if statements, we just do this thing, wrong, that thing, and they're just return values. It's like 0 or 1. 0, do this. 1, do that.
Mate, I love writing my scripts like this, but it does confuse a lot of people. I won't deny.
Yeah, it doesn't confuse me, so that's all right. I know exactly what it does. There are some limits.
I'm a devil for just using test minus something.
God. So the installation has been paused. So the installation, it's now finished installing the base packages I've told it to do. So I just want to finish this. So U-boot bootloader config. So where does this thing live? Yes, this is. So the issue, I've written this down in my notes already, that this might be an issue because the config, I need to add in this line I've selected to the bootloader config, but I don't think that the bootloader config wouldn't have been created yet, or wouldn't have been modified because I haven't written a script to do it. This kernel fork thing needs to run last, and the problem is that it won't because, well, actually, hold on a minute, it doesn't run last because it hasn't got a name. There we go, now it does. That should do the job, actually. Hang on a minute. Let's rename it 999. There we go. I'm pretty confident that'll do the job. 1, 2, 3. I'll just validate that though. So where does it get run from? From here. So cat that. Right. How does this know what to do here? So for platform in. So oh yeah. Okay. So for I in user share hardware model helper.s. Okay. How does it know what the arc is? Okay, yeah, fine. Installer and then helper.src start do. Okay, string I done. But that's going to do that. It's going to do that. No, as it happens, it would actually have worked anyway because it's R because it's going in by. Okay, but anyway, that'll fix it. Cool. So yeah, just renaming it 999 is going to fix it anyway. Awesome, awesome. So then what we need to do, write the other script first. Well, I don't need to, but that would make more sense. Okay, so I've renamed. That's the where did the SSHs go? TTY. Cool. Right. So here we are. Slash boot platform. Okay. Boot platform hardware model. Okay. This is the FAT32 partition inside the actual running installer. So what do we need to do? We have this here. Okay, so that's basically all this post install script thing needs to do to convert the existing configs that are configured to boot the Slackware installer to boot the Slackware operating system. Well, it might work, Warwick, I don't know. I've finished everything, I think.
Well, let's have a look then. Let's see.
Yeah, it might do, I don't know. I think I've done all the code and put the files how it should, but I'll need to retest it anyway and rebuild the installer, but hopefully. Am I doing this over SSH? Or what am I doing over? I don't know. Oh, well,
I think you did do SSH, weren't it?
this is SSH, yeah. I realised I haven't captured any errors or anything, which would have been beneficial. But okay, synchronizing the RAM disk. Oh, I need to, of course, better change that tool as well so it populates it in the that partition, but that won't be too hard. Hopefully. Right, so let's configure the mouse. Yeah, whatever. RPI 4 or no, yes, no, whatever. RPC. I do actually, yes, TR732B. B1, yes, no, yes, London, whatever. Okay.
I think it's fair to say everyone's got their favourite Slackware font, isn't it? I think mine was always T.
This one, it has to be because on the HDMI monitor, it's just not big enough otherwise. It's like barely readable. Okay, so we reboot the machine. So let's oh, actually, before the reboot the machine, what we'll do is we'll go to exit, go to a shell. By the way, this menu in Slackware installer, I added it because previously it used to drop you to a shell and just say do Control-Alt-Delete. But on ARM32, there was no keyboard or monitor, it was serial. So you can't do Control-Alt-Delete. So I added this in and Patrick accepted it into here so we can have shell, reboot, and power off as options. Let's see what happens. So let's go to boot, platform, hardware model. So config.txt shouldn't have been touched. SLK config, what's in here? Config. Okay. Okay, bug, I forgot to do that. Okay, that's good. I'm glad I checked. I'll fix that now. That's fine. I'll fix that. Which script is that in? Right, that should do. So just fix that here to make sure it actually works. Config thing. What's it called again? SLK config. Cat. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, that looks good. Bug fixed. Okay, that's good. What else is there? Command line, what happened to that? Oh, why is it added? Why is it added that? That shouldn't be there. Has it got a feature flag set or something? No. Why has it added that in there? Okay, there's a bug in that script. I shouldn't have done that. Actually, yeah, why the hell is it? Oh, yeah, okay, I know why, because I think I know why. Right, it should be, okay, I copied the code without actually checking it. I just saw the flag name and went, oh yeah, that'll be it, copy it. Saying if the flag isn't there, then append it, but it should be that if the flag is there, then append it. Right, okay, simple bug fixed. Right, so I need to strip out that stuff. Okay, let's
Bruce,
do that.
I once took a customer to DR to find a missing an exclamation mark in a script which stopped the machine from starting up. But the machine was too expensive to risk working on prod, so we took it to DR to find out, and it was a missing exclamation mark.
Simplest things, isn't it?
It is.
Sometimes config. Oh, what am I doing here? Oh, it's a command line. Right, so we can strip that out because that's actually for all of this stuff I'm just deleting. It's for the Raspberry Pi kernel, the vendor fork, not the mainline kernel. Oh, that said, I might hang on, make me just double check that I haven't missed anything. Okay, so let's just reboot this thing. See what happens. So, okay, I can watch it on the HDMI monitor that never unblurred. I don't understand why it's not automatically. So that you get that, that's okay. I don't know why it doesn't automatically unblur itself. It's a bit weird. Anyway, never mind. Okay, so the kernel is booting. Yeah, oh, okay, there we go. So this should be the Slackware OS. And if it doesn't work, I can change the config to boot into a minimal shell within the init ID, because I added that functionality to ARM. Right, there we go. Done. Works. Actually works. Okay, well, if you guys made it through to the end, that's me having migrated the Raspberry Pi from U-boot to the native bootloader. And now we just need to make a couple of other little tweaks and stuff like that. But that's it, it's done. So, see you in the next video.